Hey guys, a little bit of late breaking news. If you've been following what's going on, you must know that Mr. Trump has now imposed 25% tariffs on vehicles, products, goods grown, made, built in Canada and Mexico. But it got me wondering what exactly is built in both Mexico and Canada that affects us, and that is car guys and car gals. Now, presumably, this list of vehicles I'm about to read off that are both made in Canada and Mexico would now be subject to a 25% tariff starting on Tuesday, which could either be absorbed by the manufacturers or, as has been the case traditionally, passed on to consumers, or at least a portion thereof. Hard to say right now which of those will happen, but worst case scenario is that the following vehicles are going to get between 0 and 25% more expensive. And I think 0 is not an option because car makers are not going to absorb a 25% increase in the cost of their vehicles. So let's get right to it. So I did a little bit of research and I found this comprehensive list of the vehicles that are built in both Canada and Mexico. So let's start with the big one, which is the Chevy Silverado 1500 and the Silverado HD. That's made in Canada, in Oshawa. So potentially that's going to be subject to the tariffs. Another one built in Canada, which is a very popular car, is the Honda Civic. Now, I'm not sure if they're all built in Canada or if some are also built in Japan. But yeah, the Civic is on the list. Another popular vehicle, dare I say, the second most popular vehicle sold in America is the Honda CR-V, built in Alliston, Canada. The most popular vehicle in America, which sold over 400,000 units last year, I think it was like 450,000 units, units are just cars, is of course the Toyota RAV4, and that's built in Woodstock. Like I say, I'm not sure if all of them come from Canada, some may come from Japan, but the two most popular vehicles in America, the RAV4 and the Honda CR-V, are Canadian made. The Lexus NX is in Cambridge, the Lexus RX also in Cambridge, and the Chrysler and Pacifica minivans are made in Windsor. A lot of cars made in Windsor, just across from Detroit because, well, it's close to Detroit. Now the new Dodge Charger, the electric one, the old one was also made there, but that's also made in Windsor, once again right across the river from Detroit. And now you might be thinking to yourself, only American and maybe Japanese cars are affected by this, but Germans also build cars abroad, specifically in Mexico, and the Audi Q5 is built in Mexico. So another one that might be subject to the tariffs. If you're a fan of BMW, a lot of BMWs, of course, are built in Spartanburg, especially the SUVs and the big crossovers, but the BMW T2 Series is built in Mexico. I believe the M2 isn't. That might be the only one that isn't. I think that's still built in Mexico, but don't, take my word for it. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. A fan favorite, the BMW 3 Series, once again, a sedan built in Mexico. Now, for all of you Chevy fans, you're not going to be left out of the party because the Chevrolet Equinox and the GMC Terrain are also built in Mexico. The Chevrolet Equinox EV, another vehicle built in Mexico, and of course the Chevrolet Blazer and Blazer EV are also built in Mexico. So if you're thinking it's only electric cars versus internal combustion engine cars, you're wrong. We still haven't gotten to the big one, which is coming up very soon, but there's one major truck that's built in Mexico that is the most popular truck in America. But the Chevy Silverado and GMC Sierra, also built in Mexico. I believe these are the twins. The vehicle that we just bought, the Ford Maverick, built in Mexico. One of the cheapest trucks you could buy, that is, until today. Now the Ford Bronco Sport, which is built on the same chassis, guess what? Also built in Mexico. And for all of you Ford Mustang Mach-E fan, that's another car that's built in Mexico. And for all of you who hate the Mach-E, well, and it's it's also built there. Honda HR-V, Mexican built. The Honda Prologue, which of course is built on the same chassis as a lot of the GM products, and it's actually selling really well. I believe they were selling like 20,000 units a month, if I'm not mistaken, last year. So that one is also built in Mexico because obviously it's built on GM's architecture. Now, Infiniti QX50 and QX55 built in Mexico. For all of you Jeep fans, the Compass, is that even a thing still? Anyway, built in Mexico. And this is an odd one. Mazda 3, I was just at the Mazda factory in Japan, and I think some of those are actually built in Japan, so there might be a situation where some are built in Mexico and some are built in Japan. But the CX-30, also built in Mexico. Mercedes-Benz GLB, Mexico. Nissan Kicks, becoming a very popular entry-level crossover. Mexico. Nissan Sentra, Mexico. Nissan Versa, Mexico. A lot of Japanese cars are built in Mexico. And the reason for that is because until today, there was a treaty agreement between Canada, America, and Mexico, the North American Treaty Agreement, that basically there were tariffs in place on certain things, but basically allowed free trade, and that allowed the manufacturers to manufacture cars. Now, when I say built, a lot of the parts come from other parts of the world or other countries. So when I say built in Mexico, that doesn't mean the whole car is built in Mexico. Maybe the correct word I should be using is assembled in Mexico. Ram Heavy Duty, assembled in Mexico. And the reason I say that is because there's a Ford product that you may not think of as being either assembled or built in Mexico. And once again, I kind of use those two words interchangeably because no car is just built in one place anymore. Transmissions could be Europe, engines could come from another place, and then they're assembled in one place. Now here's the big one, and this is going to hurt for all you Toyota Tacoma fans. They used to be built in San Antonio, but now the Tundra is built in San Antonio, but the Tacoma production moved to Tijuana, so those are also subject to the 25% tariff. Volkswagen Jetta, built in Mexico. Volkswagen also builds cars. Volkswagen Taos, it just got refreshed, also built or assembled in Mexico. Now that's, a pretty staggering list of cars, especially when you consider that some of those vehicles are the best selling in their class, specifically the CR-V, the RAV4, and the Tacoma. Now, for all you Ford Super Duty fans, you might be thinking to yourself, don't have to worry, next time I'm going to get myself a Super Duty Power Stroke, I'm in luck. Well, you're not, because the Ram, like I said, the Ram is also built in Mexico, the Power Wagon, but the Ford Power Stroke for all the diesels that are assembled in America is built in Mexico. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, all right, well, that could potentially be bad, but it could actually get worse than that. If you've been reading the latest news and watching the latest news, you would know that the Canadians are also threatening tariffs on products built in America and sold in Canada. We're not sure what's happening with the Mexicans yet. The Mexican government has said that they are going to be implementing Plan B, but we're not sure what Plan B means. But once again, I think they're going to match those retaliatory tariffs with their own tariffs. But one of the things that's been tossed out there by the Canadians is 100% tariff on all Teslas sold in Canada, going right after a big Trump supporter, of course, Mr. Elon Musk. And that would probably kill all Tesla sales in Canada, which, when you think about it, is bad for America because Teslas are built in America, and there are workers out there, who could potentially lose their livelihoods and certainly lose their jobs. Now, there's also been a lot of talk in the industry and in the trade because of the way that the parts and the various components of cars are built within the free trade zone currently, that if this tariff were to either stick or potentially escalate, we could see the shutdown of American factories in Mexico and in Canada, and perhaps even in America as soon as a week from now, which would certainly put a lot of American workers out of work So anyway, we don't cover politics here, but I thought that you would be interested to find out if your vehicle or if the vehicle that you're interested in buying is going to be subject to these tariffs, and chances are it very well might be. So my suggestion would be that if you're looking at one of these cars, you might want to get one sooner than later. Now, of course, there's cars that are already here, and those won't be subject to those tariffs. It's products coming in as of Tuesday. So there is some buffer, which does allow a little bit of timing before prices will start to go up. And for all of you who think the prices won't go up, I would suggest you do a little bit of research and find out what has happened in the past with trade wars, because inevitably they lead to higher prices, and because the companies can't bear, especially a 25% increase in the cost of whatever they're selling, those prices almost always get passed on to the consumer. And prices, I think, are already at record highs. Last time I did a little bit of digging, the average new car price in America was tickling the $50,000 range. It dropped a little bit, and then it came back up. And then, of course, you might be thinking, what will happen to the price of fuel? And the latest Trump moves also have imposed a 10% tariff on Canadian natural resources like gas, diesel, oil, and chances are that we'll see an increase in the price of gasoline because of that. And that would be probably the very first thing that's going to increase, because we do get a lot of our fuel both from Mexico and from Canada, even though a lot of the press out there says that we're energy independent, but the problem is that it's a world market for oil, and where it comes from doesn't necessarily affect how much of it is produced in America. So there you have it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you watching, and if you're interested in more news, views, and real-world reviews, just head on over to alltfl.com, where we're always staying up on the latest of what's happening, and I will see you next time. Ciao.